when you're thinking about social media as well, we're not just talking about organic content, but with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, you can target by interest, you can target by behavior, you can target by location, you can target by age. So the more you know about your audience, the more effective your ads are going to be as well.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Weeks Weekly. Excited to talk to you again this week with my guest today, Leanne Smith. Leanne, how are you today?
Hi Ed, good thanks. Cold, very cold in the UK. Yeah.
Same here in New York, even though we're across the pond from each other, same weather. But what are we talking about today? Last episode, we dove into the importance of strategy. I think we covered enough of that. Today, it's really about what, Leanne? What are we talking to our audience about today?
We're talking about audiences, actually, to our audience. So
that?
On the back end that you've got your strategy developed, this is now audience personas and the importance of why you need to determine who you're talking to before you do any marketing activity. So you've identified your strategy, you know your plan, and part of that strategy really is to develop your audience personas. Now, a lot of people get a bit stuck with this because they overthink it. It's actually quite simple. You need to understand who you're talking to. Your persona is the major guiding force in all your marketing endeavors. So it is key to any successful campaign. Without it, it's guesswork. And you do not want to do any guesswork when it comes to spending money on marketing.
No, unfortunately, I think way too many people are using that guesswork and hoping they're connecting to the audience without really identifying them. So I think we talked about this last week, but remind the viewers, maybe this is the first episode they're catching. We talked about a scenario of a practice where the disconnect was who they were selling to and the audience was connecting more to the staff, not so much the actual doctors and doctors, dentists. I don't recall exactly, but do you remember that piece of last week's episode?
Yeah, it was a situation, I think a client that we worked with a while back where they were selling dentistry equipment, so handpieces, drills, and just assumed because that's what they sold, that was their target audience. But it wasn't. The people buying it were internal and administration staff that were actually doing the research on behalf of the dentist. So it wasn't a dentist that was coming to the website. The website had to talk to the administration team. So it had to be a little bit more, the content needed to explain the product in a little bit more detail than was necessary for the dentist. Admin staff wouldn't necessarily know the features and the benefits as well as the dentist would. So it's all about just making sure that your content, your products are tailored to who's actually looking for it, not who you think is looking for it. And there was a famous, the Gap rebrand back in 2010. Now we all know about this. It was an absolute flop. They changed their logo completely because they wanted to attract really young, trendy people to their brand. And it ended up having such a detriment effect to their brand where they lost a lot of customers. People got really annoyed because they thought the Gap didn't want them anymore because they weren't trendy. They're just like classic clothing. And within 4 weeks, Gap went back to their original logo and they spent a lot of money and a lot of time on this rebrand. But they didn't know their audience. They didn't talk to their existing audience to find out who they were and what they wanted. Had they have done that, they would have known that they were very happy with classic, timeless clothing, didn't want trendy. That was the majority of their audience, but they just went for what they thought they needed to get at that time, and they lost a lot of clients because of it. So this is why not just audience personas change as well. The marketplace changes, the economy changes, your audience might change over time. So it's not just a one-time thing. You have to constantly keep asking your customers what they're after, looking at your your CRM system, looking at the information that you've got on your customers, looking at Google Analytics to look at the demographics, the devices people are using. And also, if you've got a big existing database of clients, do some surveys, send some surveys out, find some information on, what kind of they're interested in, how big their companies are, maybe what kind of hobbies they've got, what they enjoy doing. It could just be kind of a general survey, but the more information you have, the better, because you then know what they're doing in their spare time, where you can find them, where you can market to them, what they like, what they don't like. Your older audience might not be so proactive on social, whereas your millennials or your Gen Zs will, so you can look to where you're going to target most of your marketing activities. So yeah, Sorry, the long-winded version, but they are absolutely key. So before you invest in any marketing activities, you really need to know where your audience are going to be, and to know where they're going to be, you need to know kind of who they are, roughly, their ages, their hobbies, their interests, their roles in companies. So it's a really, really big part of marketing. So many people don't do it, and they'll say to us, Ed, we've had it before, where done Google ads, didn't work, done social ads, didn't work. It didn't work because it wasn't targeted. You didn't know who you were talking to. Your ad copy was wrong. Your landing page experience was wrong. It's not that it doesn't work. Marketing always works if you do it properly, and that is key. So yeah, we went back to what we were talking about originally, strategy, and in that strategy, it's audience personas, knowing who you're talking to know where to find them.
Yeah, I mean, so important. Unless you have the budget of a Gap, and you can go out there and make a giant, a huge mistake. Unfortunately, a lot of times we see in the local markets, right, where they think they know, so they just go in one direction, or maybe they use. There's a lot of niched agencies, and I'm again not knocking anyone in this space, but a lot of niched agencies use the same messaging for every client because it's just easier to produce that niche message than it is to actually customize something. So they'll just go down that path for 6 months and spend thousands and thousands of dollars and then think, oh, marketing doesn't work. But they haven't taken the time, taken that initial step to identify that audience clearly and target the message and tailor the messaging to that. So super important. Again, I think a huge example, if you're watching this and you're in the area that I'm in the Hudson Valley, there's a massive population shift here that is a lot of people coming out of the metro New York City area moving into this area. So the messaging that might have worked many years ago, now you have to really go and look deeper into your audience and look at who's moving in and how you can customize and tailor the message to this new population that's moving in here. And your old marketing isn't going to really work to this new audience. Even though it's 90 miles away from us, it's a completely different world and different person you're connecting to. So I think it's super important to understand this progression of strategy to persona. And then really, I think as we get into next episode, we're going to be talking more tactical things, correct?
Yeah, so once obviously you've got your strategy in place, you know who you're talking to, then it's the tactical, so it's putting the plan into action. Just going back though to audience personas, ideally you want to establish your strategy personas before you even create your brand, because you see it so often where these companies, they'll go to a brand agency and they want a nice logo, but it doesn't speak to the audience. So it's really, if you've got a new service or a new product and you are creating a kind of a sub brand, definitely do your audience persona work before you invest any time in design, because it's so key. And as I was saying, certain people will look at your brand in a different way in different areas. So it's very important you understand your demographics before you do any work. Yeah.
So maybe 2023 could be the year of maybe the rebrand, really focusing on strategy and persona, and then a rebrand, right? I mean, it doesn't mean you have to change everything, but it could really help with the marketing initiatives.
Well, yeah, and tone of voice, how you're writing, the content that you're putting out there on social. If you're talking to CEOs and VPs, you might want to be a little bit more formal and a bit more direct. If you're talking to your kind of millennials, your Gen Z, you need to kind of more use emojis, keep it short, keep it informal, friendly. So yeah, just simple things like that. Even I do some volunteer work for a charity called the Princess Trust, where I help young adults with their business plans. And one of my mentees was doing her audience personas for her business plan. And she even identified the kind of music they like to listen to, because she's so proactive on social media. And obviously now you can put music over your videos, and you can put music over static posts now on Instagram. And that's what she started doing, putting the music that her audience like and the kind of bands that they're into over her videos. And they get so much more engagement. The more details you can get about your audience, the better, because you can tailor your social, you can tailor your website, but most importantly, you can talk to them properly, and how they're going to react to that is going to be much better if it's directly talking to them and not to you or your staff members.
Yeah, and I think that you just hit that on the head. So oftentimes we know that people always think they know their audience, right? Uh, Let me ask you this without, I won't be negative. So we'll just be, I'll just ask you a question. If we're going in to do this session with a client, who do we normally bring into, who should be involved in a meeting of developing personas?
Anyone that's talking directly to the customer, more so than your VPs or your CEOs, get a little bit detached from the customers. So if you've got a sales team or a customer service team, they're on the front line. They're going to be the best people to come into that meeting. And they'll say, actually, no, that's not who we talk to. This is who we talk to. Really insightful. And the VP might say, but this is who we want to talk to. And then that can get into a whole new realm of reevaluating the strategy. But yeah, I definitely think the people that are directly communicating with the customers on a daily basis are the best people placed to be in that audience persona workshop. So anyone like that, even receptionists that are on the phone every day, taking the calls, diverting them, anyone that has that kind of immediate contact with customers is key.
Which, it may identify another piece too of some of the content that's being created could be created in the likeness and from the people that are actually dealing with the customers on the end to end. I can just think of an example from our recent past where a certain industry was very stiff and formal and very professional, but their audience and who we were going after were people of lower economic status that would use their services. So it was a complete disconnect if they thought that those people wanted to deal with this like stiff personality. And I just think something to think about is as you create your content, your videos and things of that nature, is make sure you're using the people that are ultimately going to talk to the audience that you're targeting. That just makes marketing work better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's very easy. They kind of I think I know who you're referring to. In in the legal world, it's very
Oh,
straight down
legal,
the
yeah.
line. And they talk a lot of legal jargon as well, which they understand amongst themselves, but their audience just won't. So just cut out the jargon. All the long words that you like to use isn't going to reside with your kind of, as you say, people maybe that aren't in that industry that are just looking for their services.
Yeah, I mean, legal, banking,
Oh yeah,
medical. There's a lot of pieces that the normal person doesn't need to know or understand. But there's a much better way to connect to. Is the point? I think we're not going after anyone. We're just saying that there's definitely better ways to communicate and reach an identified target market, and just be open minded. I think is the biggest piece, right? We don't
oh,
want anyone to go in there thinking they know. You have to go through the process. And then, I know in a lot of our cases, people have been like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that person that we talk to all the time looks like this. Oh, yeah, we need to definitely target and go after that person. And how are we going to reach them? And again, that's when marketing starts to work. So it's very important for sure. So the next,
and
I
it's
think is there anything else you want to add to this, Leanne? I don't want to stop before
well,
if you have more to add.
I won't talk too much, but when you're thinking about social media as well, we're not just talking about organic content, but with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, you can target by interest, you can target by behavior, you can target by location, you can target by age. So the more you know about your audience, the more effective your ads are going to be as well. So yeah, it's all very relevant, but I think we've covered quite a lot. But yeah, if you want some help with that, there's some information I think on the website about audience personas, and if you Google audience persona templates, there's lots online that you can download for free, and it gives you kind of an overview of what you need to establish from that person to develop a decent persona. Or reach out to Ed, who's got loads more info.
For sure. Awesome. Leanne, I appreciate your time as always. Stay warm over there, and
You
we'll see you in
too.
the next episode.
See you. Bye.